Okay, this is a common problem with Dodge Caravans. This is a 2006 Dodge Grand Caravan without automatic temperature control. The blower motor does not work. So I've checked the fuse under the hood, I've checked the relay, they're both good. So it has to be the resistor or the motor. And I'm going to explain how to determine which needs to be repaired. Okay, in order to access the resistor or the motor, we're going to have to get into the glove box here. Simply open the box. On each side there's a little tab that retains it. Push in on the side of the glove box and bring that tab past the natural stop on both sides. And the glove box just flops down out of the way. Okay, behind the glove box, you see this thing right here that has a 5-wire plug-in on the left-hand side and a green and black plug-in on the right-hand side. This is actually the resistor. Now, we have to determine whether or not the resistor is bad, so we're going to do a couple of electronic checks with a multimeter. Basically, all you're doing is checking to see if the hot wires have voltage to the motor and the resistor. So with the key on, we're going to check the power going to the resistor. And that 5-wire plug on the left-hand side of the resistor, the large blue wire to the extreme right on the plug, is the hot wire. So I've grounded my little multimeter to the dash chassis that holds the glove box on, and I'm just going to touch my probe to that connection there and see if we've got juice. We do have juice there. The next thing we want to know is, do we have power to the motor? If we do not, then the problem is the resistor. There's no power leaving the resistor to the motor. On the 2-wire plug on the right-hand side of this, the top connector, which is a green wire, is the hot wire for the motor. If the resistor is okay, we should have power to that hot wire. We do have power to the hot wire. The resistor is probably okay, and it's probably the motor, which is too bad because that resistor is a very simple thing to replace, but that motor is a hard thing to fix. The first step to gain access to the motor is to remove the glove box lid, and that pops out. Then you can push in and remove the second one in the middle. And then finally pull out on the last one. And the glove box lid is out. Okay, the tools that you need in order to get this housing off of the motor assembly are 8mm socket on either a driver or a ratchet with a short extension. You're going to need an 8mm wrench. Typically the open end works better because of the close proximity of one particular screw to the housing. These are actually the screws, and there are 5 of them. The other thing that I highly recommend is some sort of flexible driver, but you can get away with using a ratchet, some extensions, and some universals. I do not recommend it. You know that if you get much more than 20 degrees off center, they do not work very well. Whereas these flexible things tend to work a little better. You can deliver a lot more torque in an oblique angle with these. Now, one of the screws that we're going to have to remove is right here, just about underneath the resistor. And that's a fairly easy one to get at. The next screw is also fairly easy to get at. It's right here. And it's just a straight on. It's very easy to do. The third one, however, is over in this area. And this is a screw that actually goes downward. This is where you're going to need your open-end wrench. There is virtually no way to get a ratchet with an extension or anything in there to get that screw out. The other 2 screws I cannot show you. There is one way in the back can get light up in there. Over to the left-hand side of the housing, way in the back, if you can get your head in there, that's fine. If you're 6'4" like me, you can't. All I can do is feel it. But it's sort of a straight on with a ratchet and no extension. You can get up in there and get that one off. The fifth one is the problem. In order to get to the fifth one, we're going to have to peel back the carpeting and take the insulation out of the right side of the floorboard here around the wheel well. That is the only way you can gain access to that screw. In order to start removing the carpet, you're going to have to take this kick panel out behind the door, and it's very easy to do actually. I can show you better from this angle. Right on the door pillar, you can grab hold of this and just snap it out, and it will actually, with a little bit of maneuvering, you'll be able to just pull it out of there. You'll have to slide it out from under the sill plate like that, and it just comes right out. Also, removing the carpet is not a big deal either. You just mainly grab it and just kind of fold it back from up under the dash down out of your way like this. The next thing to do is to remove this insulation. You can try using an X-Acto knife or utility knife, which I've actually done, and I made a cut around the wheel well area and took out as large a chunk as I possibly could, and then reach up underneath, grab hold of it, and just pull and hope you get the majority of it out of there. The screw that you need to access is way in the back near the center of this housing, looking straight on from this direction. It is a bear to get at, and that's why you need that flexible extension with the 8mm socket on there. Good luck with that. I cannot show you how to do that with a camera. There's no room for the camera, so basically you'll just have to feel for it, get onto it the best way you can, and take it off. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to remove the negative cable on your battery to prevent electric shock or the unintentional deployment of your airbag device. Risk is very low, but nonetheless it's there, and that's what the shop manuals recommend. So we want to disconnect the power cable from the resistor, and it's not too hard to do. Basically, you need to push on the side of this in order to release the little catch and pull straight out like that. Okay, the next thing you want to do after removing that cable is to actually push this grommet with a thin blade screwdriver perhaps through the housing into the inside. And this will release that wire that's connected directly to the motor above and give you a little more access to this housing. On the bottom of this device there's a little stepper motor that turns a door inside of this canister to allow either fresh air or air within the passenger compartment to enter the heating system or the cooling system. You don't have to remove this. You can. It's set hard. There's just two screws holding it on. Okay, so I'm reaching up in there now, and I'm just going to try to pull this housing down. And as you can see, it's loose in every way. But inside there's still an attachment, and it's that door. I'm not sure that I can actually show that to you with the camera, but in the center, directly where this actuator motor on the bottom, the door is connected, and basically you just need to pry this down as much as you can so you can gain access to it, and just pop the bottom center part of that door out of there. It comes out kind of hard, but you may actually even be able to reach in there with your hands if you're small and just snap it out of there, and then this housing should drop right out. Okay, I removed the little actuator motor from the bottom of the motor fan housing, and I found that trying to release that door on the inside is very, very difficult without doing that. It's held on by two screws. The front screw is very easy to access. The back one, you need an 8mm screw again, of course, and a small ratchet without an extension because it is pretty close to the floorboard, but you can take those 2 screws out. Then what you actually have to do is, and I use my little ratchet driver, is to push up inside of the shaft that connects to this motor and pop it out of the holding position in the housing. To try to do it from the top is very difficult, and I actually wound up breaking a little piece of it off. Trying to do that from the inside, I found that this was much easier. And this is the housing that came off, and this is the hole in the bottom where the actuator shaft motor goes through and connects to the little door shaft that goes down into this hole on the inside. And to try to get it from this side at approximately this angle is very difficult. So I would recommend taking the time to take that off. It'll save you a lot of headaches, and it'll keep you from perhaps breaking it like I did. And I'm not sure if we can actually see in there now or not, but okay, here is the wire with the grommet on it that I pushed through the housing, and here is that door and shaft right here, and you can see it turns on a quarter turn. The default position is to the extreme right, like this. When you put everything back together, make sure it is not in that orientation, otherwise your heating system won't work properly. So make sure it's there, put your actuator motor back on, and you should be all set. We got the motor out finally. The last step that I didn't show you inside was to remove 3 screws that are evenly around the motor housing here, and those are basically a straight-on shot. They're 8mm screws. These are all the screws that I've taken out of the whole system so far, and they're all the same, so they're all interchangeable. They can go back in any way. You don't need to keep them separate. But once those screws are removed, you actually have to pull it out of there. You can see the motor will be loose, and you'll actually have to pull it by that little door, actuator door that's in there. And it's pretty flexible, so you can actually bend that door quite a bit in order to get it out. It's a little cumbersome and hard to view. One word of warning: I took this motor and I put it on my workbench and hot wired it to a 12-volt battery, and the darn thing worked. And I was a little dismayed because I thought, well, I went through all that process of trying to figure out what was wrong with this motor, and in actuality it was working. I called my good friend who was a mechanic for about 30 years, and he said, do not put that motor back in. The motor is still bad. What happens is, on the armature of the motor there becomes a dead spot over time, and if the motor happens to stop on that dead spot, it will not start again. So throw it away and put a new one in. An aftermarket motor costs about $70. They're just as good as original equipment, and it'll save you from doing this all over again down the road. So we're going to put the new motor in the reverse order and check everything out and see how it goes. And here's the new motor. Comes with the fan housing on it. This is an aftermarket one, but it's an exact fit, so it should work pretty well. For those people who found out that their resistor might be bad, this is a fairly easy thing to replace. This is the resistor housing right here. I've removed the power cord from the motor already, and this 5-plug cord that comes from the temperature control, the fan control unit on the dash, can simply be removed by pushing up on this tab and pulling it directly out. And then there's a screw here and a screw here. I'm going to take those out, pull this resistor so you can see it. Okay, I removed the 2 screws, and this whole resistor package should come right out of the dash. And this is what the original Chrysler resistor looks like. Basically, it's a strict replacement. You just throw this away, buy a new one for about $14-15 at your auto parts store, and put it back in and reconnect your cables, and hopefully you're ready to go. So the resistor that you pull out may actually look like this. This is an aftermarket replacement. So possibly yours could have been changed at one point or another without your knowing it, or perhaps the factory actually used this model, I'm not sure. Regardless of the fact that they look different, it still goes back in the same way, and they should both work fine for you.